right. Good evening, everyone. Appreciate you coming down. This is the final town hall about emergency preparedness and the no parking during red flag warning program that the city is proposing. So we're gonna start this conversation off with a quick video, and then we're gonna do a quick introduction of the speakers, and then we move on to the program. So Eric, if you don't mind, play the video for me, please. The fire started to burn through one of the wealthiest and most beautiful neighborhoods in the country, the Pacific Palisades. I saw when the fire first started, so I rushed over here to pack my belongings and I got the evacuation orders. Barely 2 hours after the fire broke out, residents began fleeing by car, but some got stuck in their tracks.
The homeowners are saying they're unable to access any exit routes. There's fire on both sides of the road.
Amid the growing chaos, many abandoned their cars in the gridlocked traffic. Responding fire crews used a bulldozer to clear a path. Crucial minutes ticked by. By 4 p.m., the monstrous fire had gathered even more strength, devouring homes. Thank you. So that's sort of the premise of what the purpose of this discussion is. Eaton Fire and Palisades Fire was just an unfortunate reminder for us that emergencies can happen at any time, disasters can happen at any time. And in City of La Cañada, Flint Ridge, with the narrow streets that we have, there are some logistical challenges of evacuations with first responders going through and addressing the fire. So that's why we're starting these conversations with you guys. The way this town hall is going to work, we're going to have a two-part town hall. The first part, we're going to talk about emergency preparedness, some key tips and tricks for you guys to be aware of as when it comes to being prepared. We have expert speakers at this table that are going to talk to you guys about how you as individuals can prepare. And then part two, we're going to introduce the no parking during red flag program, go through sort of an introduction, and then allow comments, feedbacks, questions, suggestions, all of that to you all as the audience member. I do want to remind everyone that we are doing this via Zoom as well. So we do have people online as well. So if you do have a question, I am going to ask you to come and speak into the microphone so those who are on Zoom can hear you as well. You can ask, suggest, make comment on anything you would like. All of these comments are going to be collected, presented to the Public Safety Commission for their consideration. And then once it goes through the commission hearings, all of the sort of the program discussions, the Public Safety Commission will ultimately make a decision and recommendation to City Council on whether the program moves forward, some version of the program moves forward, or the program doesn't move forward at all. So with that, I'm going to go on to the introduction. So let's go into the next one, please. All right, so we have a couple of speakers and so that everyone can have an opportunity to speak. We're going to start with Maria to introduce herself, and then we're going to go down the table.
Maria Greiken, and I am the Community Services Liaison for Division 3 for LA County Fire Department.
Chief.
Hey, good evening, Pat Springle, Assistant Chief, Los Angeles County Fire Department, overseeing the community of La Cañada and the adjacent communities.
Thank you. Kathy.
Kathy Sproul. I'm representing the American Red Cross.
All right.
Farhad Irantal, I'm a city traffic engineer.
Also, and I'm Arbo Parsigan. I'm the Director of Administrative Services for City of La Cañada, Flint Ridge. I have Kristen Cook to my left over there, who's our Deputy Director for the department. I have Eric Castro, who's our IT specialist who makes all of this happen. And I have Mark Siebert, who is our auditorium manager, who's helping us out with all the AV equipment and everything else is concerned. So with that, we're going to pass this on to LA County Fire that is going to talk about wildfire, home hardening, and emergency preparedness. So Maria and Chief, you're up.
Okay, for wildfire, home hardening, and emergency preparedness, I'm sure you're all aware of red flag weather conditions. And a red flag weather condition is when winds are sustained at 25 miles per hour or more, along with 15% humidity or less. Both of those things have to be present for red flag conditions to exist. Red flag warning does not necessarily mean that a fire is going to start, a brush fire. It just means that if a brush fire were to start under those conditions, it has the potential to spread very rapidly, much more rapidly than we would be able to get resources in front of it. So that is when they start to burn a little bit out of control. So we see typically on average around 15 to 18 red flag days per year that a red flag warning is called on average. And we have, and they're in the book, they're in the back, we have Ready, Set, Go books, which is the wildfire action plan that you can sit down with your family and prepare. It has a lot of tips on evacuation warnings, evacuation orders, when to prepare to leave, what to prepare to take with you, all those different things. There's also a section on home hardening. Home hardening in addition to defensible space, which is defensible space is really the brush inspections that we are starting to do this month. So that's the defensible space. That's all the vegetation and limbing up trees and making your home defensible. But in addition to that, and equally as important as the defensible space is hardening your home. And one of the other handouts, this is a stapled packet, but there's separate handouts there. These are all tips on how to harden your home. So it's boxing in the eaves. It's installing ember resistant vents on all of your vent coverings. The standard vents were 1/4-inch vents that would cover your vent openings. And we'd like to see those at least 1/8 of an inch or 1/16, but at least 1/8 of an inch, make them smaller. And that is to prevent embers from flying in and getting inside those vents and starting your home on fire. Many times, most of the time, I should say, when structures start to burn during wildland fires, it's not really that the fire got to the structure, but rather that embers flew from the fire and embers found their way into a home. And then that's what starts one fire. And then as soon as one fire starts, has the potential to spread to others. And that's exactly what we saw in both Palisades and Eaton. And most of that was due to ember intrusion. So there's a lot of things that homeowners can do to have that non-combustible area around their home. One thing that's very important is Assembly Bill 3074, AB 3074. That was put into law a few years ago, but it hasn't been enacted. It hasn't been enforced until now. It is now going to start being enforced. And it is AB 3074 establishes what we call Zone 0. And Zone 0 is the 5 foot from your structure, the area that's 5 feet, within 5 feet of your structure. And AB 3074 says you cannot have anything combustible within 5 feet of your structure. So many of us have plants and shrubs, outlining our windows outside. It's very decorative. It's very nice. They've been there for years. And AB 3074, really what it says is all of that needs to come out. We are not enforcing that this year during brush inspections. We are not enforcing Zone 0. Zone 0 will begin being enforced January 1st of 2026, but only on new construction. It will not be enforced on existing homes until 2029. So when we do our brush inspections in 2029, that is when we will start enforcing that 5 foot ember resistant zone. But I like to talk about it now, and I like to tell people to start preparing now, start thinking about it now, and what changes you might want to make to the exterior of your home within that 5 foot zone, and then make those changes gradually over time, over the next 3 years, so that when we do begin enforcing that 5 foot ember resistant zone, you will be ready for it instead of, scrambling a month before inspections start and then trying to figure out how you're going to change your landscaping and what you're going to do to become compliant with zone 0 and that 5-foot ember resistant zone. So it's something to think about, start thinking about now, what changes you could make. That's all I have for that part of it. And whatever else you'd like to add. Chief.
Thank you, Maria. So good evening. I just want to start by thanking the city of La Cañada for being proactive and doing what they can to assure that the community is as prepared as we possibly can get. This is a huge step in adding to the preparedness, and hopefully that the fire department in concert with the city and in concert with the residents can do what we can to assure that we are making it as safe as possible and as ready as possible, since we live in a wildland community. The recent fires of January were a certain reminder that we need to be prepared. I am the fire chief over Altadena, and I felt like we were pretty well prepared in Altadena, and we were in many ways. There's some ways that we can be more prepared, and there's some ways that we can assure our preparedness is built back up to where we need to be. But I can tell you this, that wildland fire of Eaton Canyon or of Eaton could have easily been in La Cañada if the wind had continued. If the wind had continued for another 24 hours, 12 hours, 24 hours, that fire would have been in La Cañada. And we would have had very similar conditions and very similar results in a lot of ways. I think the building construction in La Cañada would have made us a little bit more prepared than Altadena, but there would have been areas in La Cañada that we would have been very, very similar to the results there in Altadena. So we need to be prepared. With that, we're already back into it starting this month with brush inspections, as Maria spoke about. So brush inspections combined with our readiness with Ready, Set, Go, and assuring that we have a wildfire action plan for our residents. Assuring that we know Zone Haven and Genesis Protect, and we are aware of what zone we live in, and we're ready to evacuate when it's time to evacuate. That also helps on the backside when it comes time to repopulate our areas. So that's Zone Haven and Genesis Protect. And then that combined with the readiness that we will talk about here with the parking. That parking will just give us one more advantage as we're trying to get resources into the incident as residents are fleeing the incident or getting out of the incident. So certainly will give us an advantage as we are able to get up in some of those tighter communities of La Cañada that we live in. It's a beautiful place to live, but it's also a place that we need to be prepared when it's time to get out. If we don't think that incidents like Eaton Canyon are going to happen again, we're asleep. We need to be prepared. If you talk about Eaton Canyon and the Palisades, there's probably 4 other incidents that you could compare it to. One being the campfire in Paradise, one being Lahaina, one being the Marshall Fire in Colorado Springs, and the 4th being Napa back in 2017. But it will happen again in California. We just need to be prepared. And that is certainly a unique incident, but we also have to be prepared for our typical red flag incidents and our wind-driven fires that we will get here in La Cañada. We need to be prepared for that. So we're here with you to work through this, and hopefully at the backside of it, whatever the city comes up with, we're making ourselves more prepared as we go in and go into these seasons. These fires are burning hotter. These fires are burning longer, and we just need to be prepared on all sides and all aspects. So thank you for being here tonight. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Maria. Next, we're going to have Kathy talk about Red Cross and some of the tips that they can share with us on emergency preparedness.
Everybody, I'm Kathy Sproul. I live here in La Cañada, And we've lived here for 42 years, so our kids went through all the schools. I said, this is the only one they didn't go to and are up and out, not too far, and more generations. But for the first time, I saw responding to a disaster as the victim. So my family lives over off Berkshire near the high school. And we watched the flames. You could see the flames above JPL. And I had gotten a call to come in and do the job I do with Red Cross. I couldn't do that. I had to say no for the first time because my family was involved. I had to think about the children, the grandchildren, whose medication, all those things. So I really appreciate your interest in being more prepared for disaster because we're a pretty small community. I mean, fire happens here, this side of town calls and tells their friends, there's a fire behind you. There's a lot of support that goes into it, but we're kind of all in it together. And the comments that we just heard from the fire chief about the similarities to past fires, that's very scary stuff. That's really close to us. So I'm happy to share some of the things that Red Cross can do to help you prepare. I've been with Red Cross for 25 years as my kids finished up here. And I am a mass care chief, so I'm interested in the sheltering, the feeding, the immediate needs of people, making sure there's medical help and mental health and services for animals and things. Red Cross does all of that. So from a consumer's point of view, from your point of view, you should know that there are organizations, Red Cross and other ones here in our adjacent communities who are already thinking ahead to provide those services. And we were pleased to see the Civic Center in Pasadena open up very quickly to start to provide services. So when something happens, there are ways to find out where the information is, and we'll talk about that in just a minute. But being prepared with your family, having a plan in place is probably the most important things. Looking at this slide, you would think that if somebody asked you, what's your biggest issue in disaster? Most people would say it's an earthquake or a big catastrophic earthquake. It's really not. It's home fires. Every single day, there is a home fire somewhere in our local communities here, and people come out, respond to that, and we come out and we make sure that the people whose house burned down have a hotel room, have their glasses, their medication, and then we get the caseworkers involved. The wildfires are a little bit different, but the same kind of needs. I think it's no surprise that the climate is changing a little bit. It's getting hotter and drier, and all predictions are that this is not going to stop for a while. So being prepared is your best bet. And we have more people who are living in areas that are going to be adjacent. That urban interface is what they call that, adjacent to places where there are fires. So we do need to be ready. Can you go to the next slide? So what can you do to be ready? You can get a kit, make a plan, and be informed. That's the basic overall to being ready for any emergency. Next one. Get a kit means putting together the items you think you would need if you had to leave your house in the moment. I always used to take my kids' old backpacks. You know, they get a new backpack for school every year, but not always is the old backpack damaged. So I'd use that, and every kid would have his emergency items in that kit. And it would include things like a flashlight, a change of clothes, your old tennis shoes. They can be the old ones because hopefully you will never need to use these. And then I would put one thing that was relative to the family in each one of those. So the first aid kit is in one bag, the water source is in another one, the important papers is another one. We kind of spread it out. We found a place to evacuate to. And in a regular fire, we're going across the street. There's an open place there. They call it the tennis court. My neighbor does not know that we are evacuating to his tennis court, but we'll share the wealth, and that's where we're going. And then for larger events, have a place that you would evacuate if you had to move. Did anybody here evacuate in the fire? Did you go to someplace local or a friend or family member? So you got it. Yeah, And those rooms closed up pretty fast. I know we tried to get a hotel room and that was gonna be Jim.
Mm.
Oh, nice.
Well, that worked out.
Yeah. And isn't it amazing that the companies, the organizations, the hotels, they all made that shift for large numbers of people. We ended up after, first we went to my daughter's house in Montrose where my 6-year-old granddaughters thought grandma came for a sleepover, which we said, yes, of course, you know, and then we had to leave that, ended up in San Diego at a hotel that made a big shift. All of a sudden there's animals, there's things organized for children. What came to that hotel were people from Los Angeles leaving. They went that far to find a place to go, and then eventually to other families and things like that. Anybody else evacuate? Where did you go?
Mm.
Oh, nice. Yeah, very good. And a lot of people, though, have no plan for that. So thinking about ahead about where you might go for your family to have a rendezvous. It's not just where would you go? What are some of the things other things you do that would be to prepare? A lot of the phone lines become jammed with all those emergency calls. You may not be able to call out, but somebody may be able to call in. So identify somebody out of state that would be your point of contact. Then your relatives from all over are not trying to call you. They're calling your point of contact. You don't even have to do it on the phone. There are websites that will easily let you identify I am safe. Red Cross has one. I just push the button that says I am safe and my family can call in and see that from wherever they are. So that makes a difference to your extended family also. When I left, I made sure that the car was loaded ahead and I had thought about what I would take with me. And important papers was one of the things. This packet is on the back table there with a lot of other very good information. Your packet is really good, the one with the orange cover. This is in a couple different languages. Somebody asked me why was it in Chinese. I said, because we live with people who are Chinese. They may want to know that. But it has a lot of information and it has links to other resources that might be beneficial for you. So I recommend that at the end, you do stop by that back table and take some things to help you. So make your plan work for your whole family. Anybody have elderly people who live with them? So mobility, glasses, medication, all those things you have to think about. I have a son in a wheelchair. So I make sure that just always there's multiple ways for him to get out of the house. But if he didn't have his chair, he would not be mobile, and he works for the fire department. So with the chair, he's totally fine. So do I have a resource for a backup chair if I need it? What kind of things would you need to think about for the people who live in your house? Grandchildren, somebody on formula, somebody need diapers. Those are things that can go in those backpacks. So make the plan work for you and your family. Functional access, functional abilities and needs, always considered. Your pets. For many people, their pets are just like family. And so what would you need for your pets? Hopefully a crate and a leash. I can tell you that the shelters that now open with Red Cross, we partner with big organizations. They just bring us the leashes, the crates, the food. So if you don't have anything, you can get them there. You don't have to sleep there in a shelter to come and say, I need these resources. We'll give you the resources. We'll let you eat there. You can take showers there. You can meet with FEMA or whoever you need to meet with there. So it's not always a shelter, it's a community resource center. All of the Red Cross shelters that open are also community resource centers. And if you walk in and say, I need this resource, that person sitting at that table who's a volunteer, just like us, will be able to make that connection for you. Yes. Pardon? I don't, but I can talk to you afterward and give you that connection. One of the good things about the connection is that most of us are also trainers. We come into the community. We'll train you in all of this. You don't have to just do it on your own and remember. We know some of the quick tricks. One of the ones that I like, just mostly thinking about earthquakes, but actually last night we lost power, so used it there, is I take those little mag lights you get at like Bosch, and it comes in a pouch that's really to be able to fit on your belt, which nobody wears belts anymore, but I put a little, like a shoestring around it. I tie it to the bedpost because in an earthquake, that flashlight is not going to be sitting there waiting for you to reach it. But if you can reach it right over your head, that would be good. Have some things in your car. I keep an emergency bag in my car all the time because I might get a call or I might not be able to get home. So where are you mostly? Are you mostly at work downtown where you're going to be stuck there for 3 days? Are you mostly picking up kids at school? Now you're stuck in your car with little kids that you thought you'd only have for an hour. What's your demographic? What is it you need to prepare for? And what one of you needs, the other one may not. So all of this kind of preparation will help you think about that. Red Cross can come if you are in a women's organization or a regular organization. We can come and do a training for you tailored to your group, whether it's senior citizens, whether it's the PTA. We can show you how to do all this and all the little tricks that get you maybe off the paper, but into the reality of people's budgets and what you already have at home. I'm looking at the map here and look at your footprint. How are you going to get in and out? If you have somebody who needs help, assign someone in your family. You're going to get your brother, you know, in the bunk bed. You're going to go get the baby over here. So assign people to do jobs. Next slide. Be informed. The radio stations you want to turn to are KNX 1070, KFI 640. They have the latest information on the radio. And if you see that picture of the radio, this is solar powered, hand crank, and battery. So multiple sources of power. They sell these at Osh. They're not very expensive. I did take this one when we left for the fires. I just didn't know what our situation was going to be. Lots of resources here in the community with the reverse 911, and La Cañada has a great emergency call that's happening right now if we need it for emergencies. Make a plan that works for everybody. Be informed. Know where to get your resources. Prepare yourself. And this packet has these websites in it for training. You want to be one of the people who makes a difference in your community. You may be shelter in place with your neighbors. What kind of training do you have that supports each other? CPR and first aid, all of that is pretty quick training, and that would definitely be a benefit. If you do not have smoke alarms in your home, we will give them to you free. We will send a team out to install them, and they'll take 15 minutes to look around and say, you might want to do this, you might want to do that to harden the home that you live in. So there's lots of opportunities, and I am going to invite you to plan now for your own family, for your neighbors, for your community, and wider. Get prepared.
All right. Thank you, Kathy.
Yeah.
Great presentation. So next we're going to talk very quickly about what your community, aka the city of La Cañada, does as far as preparedness is concerned. So there's many aspects that the city as an organization handles when it comes to emergency preparedness. As the chief mentioned, we actually do our own weed abatement program for any public facility and public open space that the city owns. We are actually in the process of completing our weed abatement program, which is creating that defensible space to the nearest structure. And just like all the properties against Hillside, we get inspected by LA County Fire, make sure that we pass those inspections. So those take place during this month into June, and we're basically ready to go during the high fire season. In addition to that, every year the city does provide a CERT training, which our CERT instructor is actually sitting next to me. Maria is one of the best CERT trainers I've ever seen do the class. If you're not familiar with CERT is Community Emergency Response Team. So what they teach you is how to be prepared, but more importantly, how to also get your neighborhood prepared in case of a disaster. Should the big one hit in city of La Cañada, Flint, or in LA County, and Eden Fire and Palisade had some of this resemblance where you have basically first responder resources are stretched thin. How do you as a community sort of take care of each other until first responders get there? So the CERT class actually teaches that. They actually are in the middle of it right now, and their graduation is going to be next week, correct? May 21st is the graduation for this class. So we'll be bringing this back up every year. So if you're interested, or if you know anyone in your community or anyone outside of the community that you think may be interested, please get them signed up. In addition to that, we as disaster service workers, when I'm saying we as city staff members, we are obligated by law to actually be disaster service workers, which means when an emergency happens, we actually need to respond to our emergency operations center. So your city staff actually gets rigorous training on how to deal with disasters and support first responders during an emergency. We did that during the Eden fire. We've done that with the station fire many years ago on mudslides and high winds. So those are some of the things we do. In addition to that, if you haven't done so, please visit our city's website under the public safety page. There's plethora of information, checklists that you can download to get yourself prepared. And for everyone, including those watching online, all the resources that have already been mentioned to you are posted on the city's website for this particular workshops page. So there's a lot of helpful guides that you want to go ahead and download as far as that's concerned. So that's some of the sort of the overview of what the city does in preparedness. Let's move on to the next slide, please. All right, now we come to the main event, which is discussion about the red flag no parking program. If you're not familiar with, but La Cañada Flint Ridge is actually designated as a very high fire hazard severity zone in our community, which means the entire community is prone to high fires, wildfires. In addition to that, no surprise to any one of us, we have narrow streets. And with narrow streets, it becomes difficult for vehicles to either evacuate or first responders to go through. With the introduction of the red flag, anytime a red flag has been issued, there's a high probability of potential wildfires to occur. And in average, we get about 15, as Maria alluded to, but it does seem to be increasing over the years. So next slide, please. So what the proposed program is talking about is potentially including no parking during red flag warnings for certain streets. And we're going to go to the map in just a second. But I'm going to pass it on to Farhad so you can sort of explain the criteria, Farhad, before I take it over as well.
Thank you, Arbo. Our mission is basically to be able to orderly and safely evacuate people outside of the fire zone. And La Cañada is kind of a very interesting, unique, because you have a very narrow roads and winding, and the only really major roadway is Foothill Boulevard. So it can take you to freeway and outside of the city. So basically, our goal is to take people from north and south and bring them into Foothill Boulevard and dissipate them. And that's why when you look at that map, all the north-south that is colored yellow, those are the major routes that is going to be for the emergency to get in and get out for the people. So, and you know, when in case of emergency, people are kind of panic and they don't think rationally. So we have to be really careful on those places, like the yellow ones. We want to have no parking at all. So that way, the fire engine can go up, and then the people can come down freely. And that's our goal. The rest of the streets you see is based on where they are located. We are trying to get them to these yellow roads, which is the collectors. So there will be no parking at all on those north-south that is marked yellow. Then you have some of those that is single access. You have only one in and out. And those are we are looking at being either ingress or egress depending on where the driveways are, we are going to put those, and where we are going to put no parking. And then you have some of those, like shown red, um, those are, we call it a potential alternate. Because in case if something happened on those yellow roads, you want to be connected to the other that you can get away. So based on that, we have categorized all this transportation network for the ease and efficient evacuation. And that's what I have. If you have any questions, we'll discuss.
Thank you, Farhad. A couple of things I want to add before I pass it on to audience and including those online. Um, This program actually started back in 2009, believe it or not, with the station fire. When the station fire happened, the city was actually updated its general plan, and one of the general plan safety element called out that the city does have narrow streets, and evacuation or response by fire department may be difficult and challenging. So that's where the sort of the genesis of the program came into play. In addition to that, so again, that's where the whole purpose comes in. In addition to that, throughout these town halls that we've talked about, some of the streets that resident had pointed out that may not meet the criteria. So as part of once the town hall is completed, all the streets that have been identified are going to be reevaluated and adjusted if need be, depending on, to make sure that meeting the criteria. One of the ones that I want to point out is, for example, Almanar. Some of the residents did point out that Almanar is wider than we're noting, and that it may not require both side restrictions. So we're going to go through and update those before we go through the comment section for the Public Safety Commission. With that, closes the conclusion of our presentation. I do want to open up for feedbacks, comments, questions, and you're free to ask anything. It doesn't have to be about the no parking program. For those of you who are joining on Zoom, I do want to ask that please go ahead and type up your comments. I have my wonderful staff that we're going to basically alternate between people in the audience here at the school and people on Zoom, and they'll go ahead and read the comments or questions that come in. All right. So with that, any questions, comments, suggestions from the audience? Gary, do you mind using the mic for me, please? Can you use the mic, Gary, so people on Zoom can hear you?
Yeah, my first question is on restricted parking, because up in Paradise Valley, we have cul-de-sacs.
Mm-hmm.
And if we have to block off the in and out of that, we might as well just have everybody leave. So what do you mean by restricted parking, and who's going to enforce that?
Okay, good question, Gary. So when we're talking about restricted parking, depending on which it is, whether it's both sides or one side of the street, that would mean when there's a red flag warning issued, there will be no parking on that side of the street, whichever one it is, or both sides. As far as enforcement is concerned, enforcement is going to be done by the Sheriff's Department, and Sheriff's Department contracts with tow companies that basically tow during those type of incidents. So these become no parking tow zones, which means if you park your car, your vehicle would get towed in those situations.
My last question, I think, on a couple years ago, we had a trial run.
Use the mic there. There you go.
A couple of years ago, we had a trial run where we evacuated, and the fire department was there, the traffic people were there, and I think that's a good way to do that, because we were jammed up and it was not an emergency. We couldn't even get out of our cul-de-sacs.
Yeah, he's referring to an evacuation drill that we did, and we did this actually for Briggs Terrace in La Crescenta, because Briggs Terrace is another notoriously small, narrow streets, one way in, one way out to the entire community. But any fire that threatens Briggs Terrace also threatens Paradise right across the valley there, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, right across the canyon. So we invited the residents in Paradise to participate in this evacuation drill, because they would be affected by any evacuation that affected Briggs Terrace. It would affect Paradise as well. So, and you remember, you participated in that, didn't you, Gary?
Oh, we did it ever.
Yeah. And yeah, so it was eye-opening. And it created gridlock. And, you know, we tried to see where the pinch points were gonna be throughout Briggs Terrace and Paradise, looking at where the bottlenecks were going to occur. And we found them. And, you know, there were a number of them, and that was on a good day. Because not everybody participated, right? Not everybody in the neighborhood participated. And we still had that problem. So if it were real, magnify that issue by probably 10 or 20 times the number of people who actually would be trying to get out when we had just a fraction of them participating in the drill. So yeah, it was very eye-opening. I'd like to see us do more evacuation drills like that, and we'll get to that point, and we will do those again.
That's good. That's good. I just thought of one more thing. Do we have a permanent place of where we can evacuate to? Like the Scansel Gardens or the community center?
No. So we try to have an idea when something, we can't designate where you're going to go until we know where the fire is and what direction the fire is going, right? Because we don't want to say, oh, if you're here, just go here, because what if the fire gets there? And then we're gonna tell everybody, no, don't go there, go somewhere. So we set those centers, and sometimes we can't get a shelter set up that quickly. So there are times when we just set what's called a temporary evacuation point, where we ask the Red Cross to just send a few volunteers, you know, to collect people and just give information, or just, you know, snacks, water, whatever we have, until we can identify an actual shelter and they can begin setting that up. So it is one of the first things that we're looking at. As soon as we know we need to evacuate, we need to figure out where are we going to send them. But we can't do it ahead of time because we don't know where the fire is.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Gary. Gary, can you pass the mic behind you? Thank you.
How do we find out what you said there's 15 to 17 days with red flag? How do we know when those days occur? Do you contact us by phone or what?
Well, there's a number of ways that this can happen if this program goes into effect. There's a number of different ways we can do it. You should know by now. I mean, we do a big media push when there's red flag. It's all over the news. Red flag warning, red flag warning. It is on the news. I do make notifications to stakeholders, and then they'll put it, you know, the city puts it on their website. It's a red flag warning. I reach out to town councils in unincorporated areas. They'll put it out, you know, red flag warning and some tips, you know, safety tips and all that. So I routinely do that with stakeholders. I don't do it with the public because I don't have everybody's email address. So I do it in larger groups. But the media is very good about doing something like this. We do, when this program or whatever its final form looks like, that will need to be a component of it. And what I can tell you is that there is something similar in Malibu, where we have in Malibu, there's what we call a virtual gate. Where there's a portion of Corral Canyon that is closed to the public during red flag conditions. So there's a virtual gate, not an actual gate, but there's a sheriff's deputy posted that doesn't allow access to the top of Corral to the state park area. That's where the Corral fire had started, in the caves up there. And what we have down below at the very bottom of Corral Canyon is a sign posted with a red flag information hotline. And there's a phone number posted on that sign, so people can call that number. So you can call it at any time, and it will tell you there are, you know, no red flag conditions currently in the Santa Monica Mountains, or if there are, it's a recording that will tell you a red flag warning will be in effect from this time on this date to this time on this date, and what the duration of that red flag warning will be. So we could certainly set up something similar for the city to set up a hotline, and then just make sure that the public has access to what that number is, and it would just be recorded information of whether or not, the standard message is, no red flag warning is currently in effect. That's a standard message. We change it when the red flag warnings are issued.
Okay, thank you. In the way of a comment, I'd like to, at Christmas time or birthdays, in September, when kids are going to go back to school, or in August, I go to Target and I buy 20, 30 backpacks. And at a kid's birth, like an adult's birthday or Christmas gifts, I give them a backpack full of stuff like first aid kit, Bactine, laminated cards
gift
that
idea.
has my sister-in-law's phone number in
Nice.
New York, or who they can contact, and just everything you can think of that they're gonna need if there's an emergency. So
That's a great
Yes,
suggestion.
it's a great gift idea.
it's
I've
better
heard you
than
talk about
buying
that before, and I think
sweaters
it's
at
great.
Christmas and they don't like the color and they take it back,
Yeah.
whatever.
Or trade.
Right.
I do want to add a couple of more things to what Maria was talking about when it comes to designated shelters. Always keep in mind, as Kathy was talking about, make sure you have your own plan. Know if there's a potential fire in La Cañada, Flan Ridge, what are some of the options that you yourself can consider, whether you have relatives outside of the city, so on and so forth. So just keep that in mind. One other thing I do want to emphasize, and the chief talked about this, and this is one of the really good things about Genesis Protect, which is the official application that the fire department and during disasters uses for emergency notification, evacuation alerts, and all that stuff, is because the system doesn't require any login. You can basically download it on your app. What we do, even in my household, all of our families have that app, and we've basically put in all of our relative zones into our phones, so that even if it's not my property that is being impacted, if my cousin who lives in Santa Clarita, he gets an evacuation alert, I'm basically alerted by that as well, so that I know, okay, they have a situation going on. We may need to support them. So that's also a very helpful tool for you guys to have, just from that Genesis Protect kind of situation where you know where your family is going as well. But that was a good question. Any other questions before I take a quick break and have Kristen read a couple of the comments online? Yes, ma'am. Do you mind passing the mic, please? Thank you. No, we do because of people online, so you're good.
Okay. But my question is, what is the current plan for Angeles Crest Highway? Because I've recently seen a proposal by Caltrans to make it a 1-lane each way, which means our state agency hasn't learned the lesson of the campfire.
Yeah. So there are no current immediate plans to change anything as far as the ACH is concerned, as far as like narrowing it and all that. What you saw at the town hall was a conceptual design. If that were to come, there will be so many more meetings, so many more town halls. There's nothing in the immediate future as far as that's concerned.
Well, I think La Cañada Flint Ridge needs to vigorously resist changing anything 2 lanes each way.
Appreciate it. Yeah.
Because that, in the campfire, if
Mhm.
memory serves me, Skyway, which is the main route out of Paradise down to the valley below, was 1 lane each way. And a lot of people got out of their cars and started walking, and I think people lost their lives because of that.
Thank you.
And-
Good
and to
comment.
have-
Yep.
And to have Caltrans suggest such a thing, considering all the homes that are up above the bend
Correct.
on Angeles Crest Highway, I think that's irresponsible of them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We saw the same thing in the Palisades incident also.
Thank you, Chief. All right. Let's take a quick second. I'm gonna have Kristen go ahead and read the comments for me, please. Go ahead, Jeff. No, Joe, go, please.
So applaud the city's initiation of this program to go with the red flag warning restrictions on the street parking. For the residents, I mean, is there going to be any resources provided to where they're going to relocate their cars, the ones that they normally park on the street? Is there going to be a resource or some type of partnership to give them a place to park that car off the street?
That's an excellent question. As of right now, no, there are no plans. And again,
No, reach out to JPL to use their lot or?
JPL might be one of those structures that not at this time, but that's a very good suggestion, and that's a question that has come up. What do people do with vehicles? It also depends on the magnitude of the program. So again, right now we're proposing those particular streets. There are some comments that have been made that the city needs to do it citywide, not just one. And obviously, when we do it citywide, those restrictions, those resources are going to be limited. So no, as of right now, there are no plans to provide alternative parking. And that's going to be one of those pros and cons, right? Inconvenience versus safety and so on and so forth that the commission and the community has to sort of debate and figure out what's the best compromise there. Okay. Any more questions? All right. Kristen, if you don't mind.
Okay, everyone. A question from an online attendee. I think the city on red flag days should prohibit parking on all streets, not just the streets on your map. If parking is prohibited on some streets but not others, the people living on the streets where parking is prohibited will park on nearby streets where there is no parking prohibition, resulting in those nearby streets being lined with parked cars, hindering the residents of those streets from leaving if there is a fire, and hindering firefighters from accessing those streets to save those houses from going up in flames. Likewise, if you have streets with parking allowed on one side of the street but prohibited on the other side, the side that allows parking will end up with their neighbors' cars parked on their side of the street. Given the unpredictability of when and how long red flag days will be, people who are prohibited from parking in front of their house on red flag days will routinely every day park across the street or on side streets during fire season.
Okay, thank you for that comment. Next one, please.
Next comment is, will the Zoom participants have a chance to access the safety readiness handouts?
Yes, as mentioned in the beginning of the meeting, all of these handouts are on the city's website, lcf.ca.gov. Just go to the red flag no parking page and all the handouts are there. Next one.
Just a comment, if and when we get another situation like the Eaton fire, listen to the news and watch Genesis alerts and leave early. We left early on the Tuesday night of the Eaton fire, well before the evacuation order or even warning came. You could tell from the maps and the media that the evacuation warnings would come for us.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate the comment. And I do want to echo this. And sometimes during an emergency, they do take this into consideration with the evacuation orders. When you get the evacuation orders, again, as the chief and Maria and the speakers have alluded to, situations can change very quickly. Do not wait until the last minute to evacuate. Everyone else is doing the same, and you guys may get stuck, whether it's on the streets or in the freeways. As early as you can, go ahead, please evacuate. Thank you for that.
And just to add on to that, as that viewer noted, the other important thing is, and I always try to stress it, you don't have to wait for the evacuation order. You see fire, you see smoke, you get nervous. Self-evacuation is always an option, and it's always an acceptable option. So, anytime you think that you should leave, but you haven't been warned, as soon as you're thinking that you should probably leave, then you should probably leave. And you don't need to wait for anybody to tell you that you need to leave.
I would add one more thing to that is, evacuating isn't timely. You might be at work downtown, you might be at school picking up kids, you might be shopping at Target. How does your family get together? Are you going to wait at home for everybody to get together? Bad idea. So identify a place that would be your meeting place away from home. And it could be the parking lot of a big store or something like that, someplace where you're going to converge. And quite honestly, a lot of people come to a Red Cross shelter just to get together with their family, just to recharge their phone. They sit there, they have some water and food. Everybody gets together. They say, we're going to grandma's house, and they leave. Yeah. Well, we have them actually. We have about 2,000 shelters identified in the LA region area, but we don't publicize those because if we said it's La Cañada High School and you went there and the fire was there, that would be bad on us, or the roads were impacted, or the roof had fallen in or something. So we work with fire, police, emergency management. There's a phone call, coordinating call. That's discussed where's the best place to go, and it's decided together, and then we pull the trigger and open it. That's a good one.
And for those on Zoom, a suggestion was made that to back into your driveway when you're parking for quick evacuations. I'm assuming that's the plan. Okay. There's one more comment, Kristen, if you don't mind reading online, please.
Rather than picking streets and sides of streets where parking should be prohibited, you should prohibit parking on all streets in the city, which then forces each house to be responsible for parking their cars on their own property, not in front of a neighbor's house. Prohibiting parking on all streets, not just some streets, will prevent neighborhood tensions and make it safer for everybody.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Any more online?
Yes, there were two earlier comments. Hi, I'm wondering when we might see an updated map. Are you guys waiting until after comments are received at this last workshop?
Correct. And that, as Nip noted, that is correct. Yes, we will be updating the final map after the workshops.
And one more comment. Thanks, Arbo, for mentioning Almanar. Also, please note that Almanar is a dead end at its north end at the horse trail.
Perfect. Noted. Any more? All right. Well, you guys are figuring that. Any questions in the audience?
That's it from online.
Awesome. Okay. We're going to give it one more second if there are any more questions. All right. Hearing none, let's go ahead and move on to the next slide, which is what's next. So as stated, first of all, thank you everyone for participating. I hope this was useful. Some of our speakers are going to be around afterwards. If you have some specific questions about your property, we can have that conversation. The next step of this is we're going to compile all the questions, comments as it's submitted to us. And then those will be presented to the Public Safety Commission, most likely in their July meeting. But we will be publicizing it in the paper when that actually goes through. The Public Safety Commission will hear all the comments, suggestions, will hear expert opinion as far as the program is concerned. They'll deliberate. Then we are going to have another meeting, which is going to be, it's going to be a joint meeting with Public Safety Commission and the Public Works and Traffic Commission, because this includes parking restriction. Both bodies sort of oversee that aspect of it. Once that meeting is complete, this will then go to the public city council for a formal recommendation, depending on how the commissions recommend it and what type of program it's going to be. Those meetings are all public. Everyone is welcome to attend. Unfortunately, we do not have Zoom functionality for those meetings, so you have to come in person. You can always email comments, but understand that those will not be incorporated as part of the meeting comments, so it won't be considered as part of that meeting process. So those do require you to come in person, but you'll have, again, multiple opportunities to participate in this process. And again, ultimately, what happens is the city council will decide what type of program, if any, that the city of Lafayette will adopt. Again, thank you very much, everyone, for coming. Thank you to staff. Thank you to our speakers for being here. This does conclude the 3 town halls that we've done. We move on to the next step. Everyone have a great night. Thank you very much.